All right, guys, coming at you with the last what's next for this Sunday, which is July 21st. We're going to discuss undefeated 122-pound champion Rey Vargas, who successfully defended his title on Saturday, July 13th in the main event of a DAZN card when he defeated former bantamweight champion and the interim champ for his belt, Tomoki Kameda. It was a good, hard-fought decision. He didn't seem to have to work as hard as he did against in his last couple fights, but he still had to work hard. Kameda really came at him. He's a good, tough Japanese fighter, but Vargas just seemed to control the pace with his boxing ability and his counterpunching, and he outworked Kameda to a convincing decision. So the question now is, what's next for Rey Vargas? Well, outside of a unification bout with Daniel Roman, it's kind of up in the air. We'll look at everybody in the top 10, just run through them real quick like I normally do. But Daniel Roman is number one. The only way, see, right now Daniel Roman's in a purse bid to make the mandatory of his WBA belt. Now, he has two belts. He's a WBA and IBF champion. I can see Roman vacating his WBA belt because that guy he's fighting is undefeated and kind of a risk to unify belts with Rey Vargas. I can see that fight happening, and I think it's possible because he's still a world champ. He'll hold on to the IBF belt. They would grant him an exception to unify belts against Vargas, and that's a bigger fight. Those are like two of the top three guys in the division right now. That's a huge fight. So I could see that fight happening for Vargas if he really wants Daniel Roman. But I think that the thing that would suck is Roman would have to give up one of his belts. But it's still a unification bout because Vargas is a champ too. So I think that option's on the table. And they both are DAZN fighters. One fights for Golden Boy, the other guy's for Matchroom. So, yeah, I could see this fight happening. So, we'll see. Another option, WBO champion Emmanuel Navarrete. Navarrete's fighting in August. He's coming off the two back-to-back wins over Dogbe. I can see these two guys locking up, and I love this Mexican fight right here, this Mexican rivalry. The only thing holding it up is this is DAZN working against Top Rank, and ESPN. Who's going to flinch on this one? Who's going to want the fight? Who's going to want the rights to it? I really think just to make the fight, both sides might come to an agreement. But, these guys got to want it first. So, not sure Vargas wants this one because Navarrete's a fucking beast. But, it would be a good fight. TJ Doheny, former world champion. Wouldn't completely rule this out, but Doheny's coming off a tough fight with Daniel Roman where he lost his world title. He has one more contract under DAZN and Matchroom one more fight under that contract before, he'd have to renew. I could see it happening, but I don't think he's going to want to go into a fight after coming off a loss to Roman against Vargas. But I do think it's an option. Undefeated Brandon Figueroa. I don't think Vargas wants anything to do with a guy like Figueroa right now, especially, when you would have the PBC would have to work with Golden Boy on this one, and I don't see that happening. So it's kind of a high risk, low reward because Figueroa is not a huge name yet. Isaac Dogbe, former world champ. He's moving up to featherweight in his next fight. He's also fighting on ESPN Top Rank. Even if he stayed here, I don't think he'd want a guy like Vargas coming off back-to-back losses, so I don't see that one. Number 7, Ryosuke Iwasa. Now, Iwasa's a mandatory to the IBF title. I don't think he'd be opposed to facing Vargas, though, because he'd have to wait around for his mandatory and probably till next year if Daniel Roman's going to go forward with a fight with his WBA mandatory belt. Or even if Daniel Roman wants to fight Vargas, Iwasa's going to have to wait till next year. So if a possibility of a Vargas fight came up, I think he might forego that mandatory fight and face a guy like Vargas. And I think Iwasa's the kind of guy that Vargas would fight because he's a former champ and he's known a little bit. He's a top 10 guy. So I wouldn't completely rule it out. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight happens. Number 8, a rematch with Azat Havanassian. High-risk fight for Vargas. He got a clean decision when they fought last May, and he busted his jaw in that fight, and Havanassian didn't stop coming. So I wouldn't take this fight if I'm Vargas. Number 9, the number 9 guy in the division, a rematch with Gavin McDonnell. It wouldn't make any sense for Vargas to take this rematch. He already beat McDonnell to capture the title. It wouldn't make any sense, so I don't see this one. And then the options at number 10, he just beat Tomoki Kameda, so that fight wouldn't make sense. He beat Franklin Manzanilla back in February. He beat him clean, even though he got knocked down hard in the third round. I don't think he would need to take the risk of fighting him again. It wouldn't make sense. The last option I'm throwing out there, Guillermo Rigondeaux, former unified champion. Rigondeaux came to fight against Ceja and actually went toe-to-toe against Ceja because I think he's trying to pull some of these other guys to fight him. I would love to see him and Vargas, and here's the kicker. Rigondeaux is the #1 contender to Vargas's belt. Can these guys get together, though, with Top Rank and PBC? I mean, it's Golden Boy and PBC. Can they get together to make this fight? It's a mandatory fight, so Rigondeaux's people would have to come to the zone most likely. Why not do it? I think this would be a great fight. It's a good option for Vargas, an all-action guy, and Rigondeaux looked great in his last fight in terms of going toe-to-toe. He wasn't the boxer that we know, so maybe he'll throw caution to the wind and take on a guy like Vargas. I would love to see the fight. A lot of options for a guy like Vargas right now. I really think he needs to take a big one before the end of the year and get a big name. So we'll see what happens. But that's it, guys. Undefeated WBC Super Bantamweight Champion Rey Vargas. True boxing, you've been hit with the truth.